I just wanna be. I just wanna be. I just wanna be your one-man band. I just wanna be. I just wanna be. I just wanna be your one-man band. It's Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday. The day that time forgot. Good evening, cultured friends. Time for another gathering of the intellects that we like to call Poetry Break! Poetry Break! Poetry Break! Help him! Help him! Somebody! Welcome back to the new exciting offering from the Treehouse Network. The Treehouse affiliates, all up and down the line. There you go. Ooh. Cup of the week. We're doing Cup of the week now, in case you weren't here last week. Of course, what we really need is more shot glasses, because I've only got the one, so Lori's getting a shout out every week, because she's... So if you're going to send a gift to the Poetry Break, what you want to do is you want to send a shot glass. That way, by this time a year from now, I'll be laying on the floor. I'll be doing the broadcast live from the floor, because I will have shot myself to oblivion, shall we say. Yes. Anyway. Welcome aboard Poetry Break for a Tuesday, the 12th of April, 2022. And I'm Bill, and we're going to get right to it tonight. I'm not going to mess around. I can talk about my hands. I'm wearing the braces this time. This is not paid advertising. Good. It's upside down anyway. So there you go. I'm going to get right to it tonight. You know why? Well, because I've got a couple of other engagements. No, just kidding. I have no other engagements. Tuesdays are all about the poetry. But I'm starting tonight with Adrienne Rich. Adrienne. I've heard it pronounced both ways by people who knew her. That's right. So I don't know. Maybe she was like, hey, on Tuesdays it's Adrienne. On Thursdays it's Adrienne. The rest of them you pick. You know. Anyway, from Adrienne Rich's Time's Power. That's where we're going to start. Nice short little piece called In the Classroom, which is kind of speaks to the theme that I'm hoping to pursue vigorously here in the Poetry Break. In the Classroom. Talking of poetry, hauling the books armful to the table where the heads bend or gaze upward, listening, reading aloud, talking of consonants, elision, caught in the how, oblivious of the why. I look in your face, Jude, neither frowning nor nodding, opaque in the slant of dust motes over the table, a presence like a stone, if a stone were thinking, what I cannot say is me, for that I came. She says it all right there. That describes my adolescent exposure to poetry and to writing pretty well. Because, what is the line? Oh, gee, Bill. Put the book away and then say you want to remember that line. I'm just good at this. What can I say? What I cannot say is me. For that I came. Yes. That's right. First one over on the stack of the... See, I'm feeling a little hemmed in. I get a little claustrophobic here at my writing desk at times because the stacks of books on either side get rather high. Yes. But anyway, we're reaching for the famous yellow folder now, which is items that have been sent in from listeners. Yes, to our fabulous email address, poetrybreak22@gmail.com. If you've got a favorite poem that you would like me to read, or a favorite poet that you'd like me to explore, if you've got a link to a poem, most of the poems that you like, probably you can find them online, and you can just send me a hyperlink, and that way I can go to it and check it out and print it and do all that kind of stuff. You don't have to retype it into an email. That's what I'm saying. Unless you want to retype it. Sometimes I get great pleasure from typing. So I've got input from 3 different listeners. We have, of course, The Hand is first. Then we move directly to Mr. Mark Kinney, who is a regular treehouser and is now a poetry breaker. Is Mark here? I assume he's. There's Holly Tuttle. Holly Tuttle is number 3. Yeah. Cindy Snyder's in the house. Hey, Cindy! Cindy! I feel a little bad about if anybody missed last week's inaugural show, but I was keeping it on the down low last week because I wasn't sure how it was going to be. So we got the hand, we got Mark Kenny, we got Holly Tuttle. And but first we're going to start out with our little invocation, which you may hear me read quite a bit here on the show, because I just love it so much, and it also speaks directly to what I advocate as a writer of poetry. Yes. It's called The Way It Is by William Stafford. There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it does not change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. But it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. The thread is the writing, you see. At least that's the way I interpret it. The hand, she lives nearby. She's lives fairly close by, so she was the first to send in something to the new and fabulous poetrybreak22@gmail.com. But she did send it. I did insist that she be like everybody else. Follow the procedures, the protocols. So she did that. Here's what she said. I thought I would love to have you read some A.A. Milne, because he was so troubled and yet wrote such lovely, innocent poems. I thought this poem, she had attached a screenshot so I could see the illustration, could have been written in a collection called Now We Are 60. I think we are at a time in our lives that we could return to innocence if we would. Where am I going? I don't quite know. Oops, it wasn't from Now We Are 6. It was from when we were very young. So, still, we could write a book called Now We Are 60. Or 65, as the case may be. The poem is called Spring Morning, and it goes like this. Where am I going? I don't quite know. Down to the stream where the king cups grow. Up on the hill where the pine trees blow. Anywhere. I don't know. Where am I going? The clouds sail by, little ones, baby ones, over the sky. Where am I going? The shadows pass, little ones, baby ones, over the grass. If you were a cloud and sailed up there, you'd sail on water as blue as air. And you'd see me here in the fields and say, doesn't the sky look green today? Where am I going? The high rooks call. It's awful fun to be born at all. Where am I going? The ring-doves coo. We do have beautiful things to do. If you were a bird and lived on high, you'd lean on the wind when the wind came by. You'd say to the wind when it took you away, that's where I wanted to go today. Where am I going? I don't quite know. What does it matter where people go? Down to the wood where the bluebells grow? Anywhere. I don't know. With the little illustration there included. Thank you, my darling. That kicks off that whole part of the show rather nicely, don't you think? Yes. Mr. Mark Kenny. Yes, Mark Kenny. He's a literary person himself, and he had written in about loving Pablo Neruda. And I wondered if I could read some Pablo Neruda. I said, I don't know that much about Pablo Neruda. I only really know his love poems. I've got the 21 love poems and the Song of Despair, and then I've got the 100 sonnets, love sonnets. I didn't know really anything about the more political Pablo Neruda. And so I said, Mark, you send me some of the poems, and so I can, yeah. So he did that. He said, there's many I might suggest, and perhaps I'll include one by Federico Garcia Lorca. So he sent me the Pablo Neruda poem called I'm Explaining a Few Things, wherein Pablo Neruda is mourning the death of his friend and fellow Spaniard, Federico Garcia Lorca. And so I'll read the Neruda poem and then the Lorca. I'm explaining a few things. You are going to ask, and where are the lilacs, and the poppy-petaled metaphysics, and the rain repeatedly spattering its words and drilling them full of apertures and birds? I'll tell you all the news. I lived in a suburb of Madrid with bells and clocks and trees. From there you could look out over Castile's dry face, a leather ocean. My house was called the House of Flowers because in every cranny geraniums burst. It was a good-looking house with its dogs and children. Remember Raoul? Raphael? Federico, do you remember From Under the Ground, where the light of June drowned flowers in your mouth? Brother, my brother, everything loud with big voices, the salt of merchandises, pile-ups of palpitating bread, the stalls of my suburb of Argues, with its statue like a drained inkwell in a swirl of hake. Oil flowed into spoons, a deep baying of feet and hands swelled in the streets. Meters, liters, the sharp measure of life, stacked up fish, the texture of roofs with a cold sun in which the weather vane falters, the fine, frenzied ivory of potatoes, wave on wave of tomatoes rolling down to the sea. And one morning, all that was burning. One morning the bonfires leapt out of the earth, devouring human beings, and from then on, fire, gunpowder from then on, and from then on, blood. Bandits with planes and moors, bandits with finger rings and duchesses, bandits with black friars spattering blessings came through the sky to kill children, and the blood of children ran through the streets without fuss, like children's blood. Jackals that the jackals would despise, stones that the dry thistle would bite on and spit out, vipers that the vipers would abominate. Face to face with you, I have seen the blood of Spain tower like a tide to drown you in one wave of pride and knives. Treacherous generals, see my dead house, look at broken Spain. From every house burning metal flows instead of flowers. From every socket of Spain, Spain emerges, and from every dead child a rifle with eyes. And from every crime bullets are born which will one day find the bullseye of your hearts. And you will ask, why doesn't his poetry speak of dreams and leaves and the great volcanoes of his native land? Come and see the blood in the streets. Come and see the blood in the streets. Come and see the blood in the streets. Pablo Neruda. Mark follows it up by saying, on Martin Luther King Day 2018, the writer Kwame Alexander read Neruda's poem on NPR. The poem is part of Neruda's shift to resistance poetry after the capture and assassination of his compatriot, the poet Federico Garcia Lorca. So now, one from Lorca. This is called Gacela in the Dark Death. Gacela of the Dark Death. Gacela of the Dark Death. Gacela is a gazelle, like a female gazelle. Gacela of the Dark Death. Actually, Joan Baez recorded this poem on one of her early albums. It was Baptism or one of those. She recorded a version of this poem. Gacela of the Dark Death. I want to sleep the dream of the apples, to withdraw from the tumult of cemeteries. I want to sleep the dream of that child who wanted to cut his heart on the high seas. I don't want to hear again that the dead do not lose their blood, that the putrid mouth goes on asking for water. I don't want to learn of the tortures of grass, nor of the moon with a serpent's mouth that labors before dawn. I want to sleep a while, a minute, a century. But all must know that I have not died, that there is a stable of gold in my lips, that I am the small friend of the west wind, that I am the immense shadows of my tears. Cover me at dawn with a veil, because dawn will throw fistfuls of ants at me, and wet with the hard water my shoes so that the pincers of the scorpion slide. For I want to sleep the dream of the apples, to learn a lament that will cleanse me to earth, for I want to live with that dark child who wanted to cut his heart on the high seas. Federico, Garcia, Lorca. And finally, Mark gave us one of his. Here's an example of one of mine, written while working in the Thurston County Correctional Facility, observing how the inmates somehow managed to find materials for making tattoos while incarcerated, materials that our program unintentionally provided them. Anytime I got lazy and didn't count the number of pens or pencils and pencil top erasers passed out and then returned to me as I packed up to leave the jail classroom, I later found evidence that the inmates had gotten very creative in their use of the items that were essentially considered contraband. So this is a little poem that Mark wrote called One Man's Tats. One man's tats speak of love and wisdom. One man's scars tell of pain and loss. Each has a story full of truth and lies. One man smiles, the other man cries. Mark Kenny wrote that. Thank you, Mark, for that contribution. See, this is exactly what this is about, So, if you remember a poem that your mom or dad used to read to you when you were a kid or something like that, that's the good stuff. Holly Tuttle, who's out there with Kim Nelson, the ranchers at the Lame Cat Ranch. They are the chief wranglers. As far as I know, of the Lame Cat Ranch. I have not heard otherwise. I'm assuming that this is true. The Vashon Island Cup, sent to me by the aforementioned, must say that you have to take to get to, and there you go. And while we're on the topic, I don't know if Lori's here. Pauline Jones is, though. There's Mark. And who else? There's Lori. Howdy. How you doing? Here's looking at you. It's Irish whiskey again, but as soon as I empty this bottle, it'll be tequila. Tell Jason. Tukwila is on its way. I don't think Holly Tuttle will mind if I take on a little extra fuel and lubrication before popping into. I think that we have a rodent problem here in the greater poetry break area, which is why I think we have to. It's the hand, ladies and gentlemen. The hand is. See, I think the hand needs to hang out a little bit longer because usually we only see the hand once. Maybe she'll come back if we're really nice. If I read really well. Yeah. All I need is another shot of Irish whiskey. So, send shot glasses. You see? You understand what I'm saying? No more coffee cups. As you can tell, I'm plenty amped up. Actually, I'm drinking tea tonight. What do we got here? We got Pauline. We got Tim and Sherry Vernon in the house, all the way from the place down there in the St. Augustine. Thank you. St. Augustine, Florida. We got East Coasters with us here tonight. They're staying up late for our benefit on a Tuesday. But they both got to get up really early to get to work tomorrow. So we feel for you guys. We really do. So thank you for being here, Tim and Sherry. Pauline Jones in the house. Bridget says she sent a poem but must have had a problem with the email. Okay. It is, once again, poetrybreak22 @gmail.com. Thank you. Cindy Snyder in the house. Holly Tuttle and Kim Nelson. Well, yes, we're right in the middle of that. Mark Kenny, Lori Trout, Katrina Knight, Janine Boggs, Monica Holverstadt. It's the whole hee-haw gang. We have a quorum. This is great, and I'll say again, I understand that poetry isn't everybody's, isn't everybody's sack of potato chips. It isn't everybody's pirates. It's Patsy Kenny. Patsy, are you out there somewhere? Goodness, getting into the paperwork again. Oh goodness. Okay, where did we leave off? Oh yes, Holly Tuttle sent in this message. Okay, why not? I can't say I read a lot of poetry. I like Rilke. My parents had one of his books around the house. I like Rilke a lot, but the translations frustrate me. I wish I could know what it's like to understand them as a native speaker would. My German teacher in college had us translate some of them. Cool. I've always enjoyed the poetry break, so looking forward to more to come. So, we've got one from Theodore Roethke, who taught at the UW back in the day. Richard Hugo was one of his students. And so he had more students than that. But Richard Hugo springs to mind first because he's one of my favorite poets. So anyway, so we got one from Theodore Roethke and one from Rilke. We'll start with Theodore Roethke. I haven't read this poem in so many years. Holly, thanks so much. I've got the collected Roethke on my shelf. Actually, I pulled it out. I pulled it out today. I was thinking that it had been sitting there unopened for so long that I thought when I opened it, the spine was just going to crack and it was going to be horrible. But it's still got plenty of, this is one of those books from the spring that I was talking about last week, from that first Literature of the Northwest class. This was one of those books. And if you don't believe me, look how thick this book is. It's a soft cover. Cover price, $3.95. This same book would cost you $22, $24 in soft cover these days. Poetry is pricey because not that many people read it. That's what I'm trying to, that's why I'm an evangelist. That's why I'm here speaking the words to you so that you will step up, dig deep, find the poetry in your heart. There you go. This is by Theodore Roethke. It's called My Papa's Waltz. Maybe one of his most famous poems. I don't know. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy. But I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy. We romped until the pans slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. One more time, how's that? My Papa's Waltz, Theodore Roethke. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing is not easy. We romped until the pans slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. My Papa's Waltz by Theodore Roethke. Now, I remember studying this poem in college, And we were talking about, about Roethke's relationship with his father. His father was not a florist. He had greenhouses and raised flowers, and was apparently very strict. And so some of the images, the waltzing was not easy. My right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt. They were thinking that it was kind of about, maybe some child abuse issues, and maybe it was, but it's also just a great poem. And I think I come to the poetry break not as a poetry scholar, but as a poetry lover, as a poetry devotee, as a poetry acolyte, as a poetry evangelist, like I said before. That's how I come to the poetry break. So I don't pretend to know anything about any of these poems. I just know that they please me, that they are pleasing to my ear. And a lot of these, like Rilke and Ranier, two poets I have not read in at least 20 years. Yeah, so, holy Tuttle. You know exactly what to send to kind of spark a new little, a synapse that hasn't fired in all those years. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know this room was here. Where'd this come from? Okay, Rilke, the poem is called The Way In. I love this. It's almost like William Stafford. See if you hear the echoes. Stafford would be like Rilke, not Rilke like Stafford. But anyway, The Way In. Whoever you are, some evening take a step out of your house which you know so well. Enormous space is near. Your house lies where it begins, whoever you are. Your eyes find it hard to tear themselves from the sloping threshold, but with your eyes slowly, slowly lift one black tree up, so it stands against the sky, skinny, alone. With that you have made the world. The world is immense and like a word that is still growing in the silence. In the same moment that your will grasps it, your eyes, feeling its subtlety, will leave it. Okay, I'm going to read that again because I screwed it up there at the end. I'll tell you, man, it's not just the hands, it's the tongue. It's just It can I said it. Anyway, it's called The Way In. Whoever you are, some evening take a step out of your house, which you know so well. Enormous space is near. Your house lies where it begins, whoever you are. Your eyes find it hard to tear themselves from the sloping threshold, but with your eyes, slowly, slowly, lift one black tree up, so it stands against the sky, skinny, alone. With that you have made the world. The world is immense and like a word that is still growing in the silence. In the same moment that your will grasps it, your eyes, feeling its subtlety, will leave it. Transitory, transitory, transitory. All that stuff. I mean, we're almost through with the show. And I'm going to run a little long tonight, apparently. That was all stuff sent in. That stuff sent in to, poetrybreak22@gmail.com. So, really, I mean it when I say, you should. Okay. So I wanted to talk about journals in poetry, right? Because this Oldmanhood thing that I've been writing, I think it's essentially what it is. It's a journal. It's a poetry. It's a journal in poetry. Like David Lehman has written 2 books. The Daily Mirror was the first one, and The Evening Sun is the sequel, and they are called A Journal in Poetry, where he takes and he writes a poem every day for a year. Then he goes back through and he picks his favorite 150 out of the 365 poems or thereabouts and puts them in a book. I'm thinking, that whole old manhood thing. I hate to make it. I hate to make it into. I hate to actually call it a project because then things get really scary and I start to being too deliberate and overthinking and stuff. So, but I think I'm okay. I'm old now. Maybe I can get away with it. First, I'm going to read you the page that I wrote in my notebook this very morning. This notebook, which sits here on this desk, where I do virtually all the writing that I do, except for the typing, which I do, over here. All I got to do is spin around. I got one of those stools. Because, you got to be ready. This morning, I wrote this. And it mentions my son, and I actually read this to my son today. So I have his permission. At 4:30 this morning, an unhoused woman is yelling outside the subsidized housing next door. We can't make out what she is saying, only that she means it. She is the daughter of a woman and a man. Somewhere long ago, she was their child. And this afternoon, I will visit my son. It must be every parent's nightmare, that woman in the parking lot, shouting down the stars, shouting at the God who forgets or is too busy creating to maintain her creation. Not worth a pillar of salt to be a God who is the object of scorn. What will I tell my son about the woman? Only to be conscious of his path and of who he is shouting at. So that's the page I wrote this morning. And I'm still working on the Oldmanhood thing, but maybe I'll skip that this week. Anything that I skip gives me more material for the next time, So I think I will, because I'd rather read a couple of sections from David Lehman's Journal in Poetry. This is great. So, like I said, he just writes a poem a day for a year and then goes back through them. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to start with this one. This is called Job Description. What I like about this place is everyone has a job to do. It's like a war in that respect. My job is to get people to write things they wouldn't otherwise have written, and to drop a phrase into their dreaming minds at night. Your job is to cross 6th Avenue in a hurry as the light changes. That girl's job is to eat a slice of Joe's pizza. Her boyfriend's job is to wear a Yankee cap and a Giuliani mask. Hold on, he is Giuliani, and that guy heckling him is a reporter whose job is to remember Sirhan Sirhan, who shot Bobby Kennedy on this day in 1968, a few minutes after I turned off the television thinking he had just won the California primary and would be our next president. What I'm saying is, if you start a daily practice of writing and you spend a very conscious amount of put your mind into unlearning everything you know about the way language is supposed to work, and just write whatever comes out at your pen. I'm not in control of it, but I've been practicing this since virtually since spring of 1978, and I don't write every day, right? I try to write a page in the morning, page in the afternoon. I try to write one in my notebook in the morning. Here, I'm going to read you. I'll read you one Oldmanhood thing because it says it. It says it. Here it is. Here it is. This says it better. 2 pages a day, 2 pages a day. That's the old manhood way. One in the notebook before the brain's awake, and the other at the typewriter for its own sake. He walks from tree to tree through the quiet and noisy neighborhoods, in thin shoes so he can feel it, with his eyes up when he remembers, and while old manhood warms and loosens, he tries to make contact with his towering relations. These are his siblings of another blood, but they share the air, the encroaching houses, the noises of children and birds, and the amputations of age. Urban trees lead a high-stress life. We can sigh for them or cry or try to save them when it's a parking lot or turning one house into 10. Even the lost woods grow smaller in the fall when the leaves are down and they look dead already. The population of Oldmanhood is booming, and there's nothing he can do but ask them to build around the trees, as good relations do. The trees exhilarate him. They recognize his hat. They decorate themselves with birds and mosses so that even in the deadest February, they carry their green gifts with grace. They know ever so much more about what's really going on, and in their silence they reach for harmony with everything around them. They grow into the light that feeds them and consume for a community that lives below ground. Their eloquence is about a world community that people clear away to build theirs. Yeah. Remember in the pandemic suite there was a lot of poems about crows? There were a lot of poems about trees in Oldmanhood. Because as an old man, I've seen a lot of trees go down in this very neighborhood. So, alrighty, friends. There you have it. I think that might be it. Did I do everything I was intending? Well, almost. I'm trying to keep it short because it doesn't need to be longer. Poems, reading a book of poems is like reading a book of short stories. That's why people need to learn that poems are to be taken one at a time, as if each one were a novel almost, or at least a novella, because so much can be packed in there, and there is some between the lines reading to be done sometimes. On my stuff, probably not so much. I'm not that deep. But some people's stuff, like Rilke's, this guy, Rilke, he knew what he was doing. That's why he's got such a big book. Me, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not complaining. I've done all right. I was thinking the other day I should publish a book of my song lyrics. That'd be a good sized book. Anyway, future projects. The project right now is to thank you guys for coming out again. Holly Tuttle, thank you for your contribution to tonight. Patsy Kenny, great to see your face. Mark Kenny, thank you for your contributions. They were substantive as hell, my friend. Yes. Who else? I'm scrolling up just for a minute. Just bear with me, okay? Patsy, you should write me an email at poetrybreak22@gmail.com. These comments, they don't always show up when I'm looking back at this later, and I want anything that you have to say that's as long as what you just wrote, I'm going to want to keep. So send it to me. Just copy it real quick from your comment and stick it in that email and send it to poetrybreak22@gmail.com. Lori Trout, as always, I salute you. We got to do lunch. I know. Pauline Jones, thank you. Thank you. Okay. It may have just been a few of us tonight, but hey, what a potent crowd. Whew, I'm feeling it. Maybe it's the poetry. I don't know, but somebody lit a fire under Billy. Anyway, same time next week. We'll come and we'll do this again. In the meantime, don't forget, I want to hear from you. You don't feel like you have to. Like I say, my mom is no longer sending out checks to everybody who pretends to really like what I do. So sorry, she just can't afford to do that anymore, is the thing. But no matter how much I try to talk her back into it. But anyway, so if you like what you see here, share it to your Facebook page. All you got to do is just share this video to your Facebook page, and then everybody that you know will see. Hey, who's this funny-looking guy you're watching here? What kind of a deal is this here? Well, it's my cousin. It's an old friend of mine. I have to watch him, His mom used to send me checks, and I signed some kind of contract, and she's kind of litigious at Kathy's trip. She might come after me if I don't watch. I understand. We understand. Anyway, hope everyone has a poetic week. See you next time around.